Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Untitled podcast.
This is episode 2.
Episode 2.
Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going? This is Jacob.
And I'm Zach.
And today we are bringing you a top 12 list of...
Quentin Tarantino moments from his movies.
Yes, the great director and writer Tarantino.
But before we get into that, how you doing, Jacob? How
I'm
you doing?
I'm doing good. I finally watched some stuff, so now I have something to contribute to this conversation.
Okay, good. What you've seen?
What have I seen? I have seen, what was it? I have seen Notorious, the Conor McGregor story.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Yeah, it's a great documentary. It goes through his upbringing, and then it goes behind the scenes of when he became the one and only featherweight champion, and then when he held 2 titles. One was from a weight division that was one above his.
Yeah.
And the ending credits, it kind of goes in and out of when him and Mayweather
got into their fight.
Yeah, when it got to their fight, it was just in the promos though. It wasn't it didn't go to the actual fight.
It just went the promo footage.
Yeah, it was just the promo footage.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
What about
check that out? I definitely saw some stuff too. I finally sat down and watched Call Me by Your Name finally, and we talked a little about this I think last time too. And I think I mentioned I was gonna watch it.
Yeah, you mentioned that it was coming. That you ordered it and it was coming in.
Yeah, it came a day after I got The Shape of Water, I believe, or a couple days after. I watched it, I think, that night. Yeah, it's a bit of a long haul. It's about close to 2 hours and 20 minutes, so it's a long movie.
That's a lengthy.
It's a lengthy movie.
It's like Les Mis.
It's like Les Mis, or even watching a Tarantino film length, and it's really good. I think the best way I can describe it, without getting into it too much, the feel of it at least, and the kind of plot wise is you remember your first crush, the first person you really fell for?
Yes, I did.
That's this movie. That is this movie of the character
That's
of
this
Elio.
movie in a nutshell.
That's this movie in a nutshell. Is because the main character Elio, who's played by I can't remember this kid's last name, Timothy Chalamet or something like that. He was nominated for Best Actor this year at the Oscars, and he didn't win it, but I think he should have won it, even though I haven't seen The Darkest Hour, and I haven't seen Oldman in that movie. But I definitely think he and Armie Hammer definitely should have had a shot to win that, especially that kid. That kid did a phenomenal job in this movie. There's without giving much away about the plot, and just to show his acting chops, there's a scene at the end of the movie, not really, I'm not going to tell you what happens that leads up to this, but there's a scene at the end of the movie where he's sitting in front of a fireplace and he's just crying for 3 minutes, and he doesn't really make a sound, and it's very subtle the way he plays it too. It's very subtle,
it's just crying.
It's crying, but it's not serious, like bawling.
It's not okay.
It's mainly him reminiscing about stuff. It's mainly him reminiscing about stuff between him and the main character Oliver, which is his love interest, and you definitely get the sense that he fell hard for this character. He really did, like how a person does when they first get into a relationship.
Yeah, they
fall hard for that person, and it hurts real bad when they get out of it, that relationship, and it surprised me how invested I got into those characters, and even into that relationship.
Good character development.
Oh yeah, really good character development. Is at first they kind of start out really, well, I'd say on regards to Elio's side, not really liking Oliver that much. I think at times he finds him obnoxious and just doesn't really like him, because the movie's set in Italy in 1983. It's Oliver is a college student who goes to stay with Elio's family. His dad is a professor that's helping him with his degree. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of like a foreign exchange student in that regard. And it follows their time together over the course of 6 weeks. And it is kind of at times a slow burn film. before we actually start getting into their relationship and how they interact with one another. It's for those that have seen the film, there's a scene involving a peach, which I may never eat a peach again after seeing the said scene. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about, and if you watch the movie, Jacob, you'll eventually know what I'm talking about.
I will know it. I will know.
You'll know when you see it. You'll know when you see it. It involves Elio and a peach. I'll just say that much. And believe it or not, from what I've heard, like the book and version of that scene is much more graphic.
Okay.
Like, I'm not trying to deter you from watching this movie.
No.
It's a really good movie. It is a really good movie. It definitely, when I look back on it, it definitely had as equal of a chance as any of the other Best Picture nominees. And I think the director of that film said a little while ago that he had plans of making a sequel to this, which is set in the 90s, and one of the elements that they deal with in that, which due to also it being the 80s and the 90s, was the rise of AIDS and HIV and stuff like that. If they go through with that and do end up making that movie, I'm gonna watch it. I definitely want to see where they go with this and how they continue it. And it being 10 years later, I'm kind of seeing how Elio has developed and how both those characters have developed. It being a decade after their first encounters.
Yeah. And
I'd recommend this to anybody. Give it a watch. It's a really good movie. You will not be disappointed.
Oh.
So
sounds pretty good.
It is a really good movie. It's really good. I know I'm talking about this for a while. I don't want to waste much more time. Not that I'm wasting time talking about it, but I don't want to take up too much more time talking about it. I didn't go in with any real expectations because I just didn't really know what to expect. I'm glad I didn't, because it surprises you. It surprises you with the character development and the emotional attachment of those characters, and you really feel invested into their characters, all the characters almost all around, but specifically into the relationship of Elio and Oliver in this movie. So give it a watch.
Okay.
When you get the chance.
When I get the chance, I will definitely look into it.
Yeah, it's good, man. It's really good.
And now on to the main portion of our show today.
Yep, the main course.
The main course, our top 12 greatest moments from Quentin Tarantino movies.
Yep. Do you want to start it, or do you want me to start it?
You know what? I'll start this one.
Yeah, we'll just switch off from there.
We'll switch off. We'll go one, then the other, one, then the other.
Yep. So Caleb starting. Not Caleb. Jacob starting. Jacob starting number 12. I'm sorry. I just thought of something else. I just thought of. I just got a flash of a different memory real quick. Okay, so you're doing 12, Jacob.
Yep.
I'll do 11, and then we'll just switch off from there.
Okay, so I'm doing even, you're doing odds?
I guess so.
All right. Cool. All right, at number 12, we have the opening interrogation from Inglourious Basterds.
So, for those that don't know what the scene is, this is essentially right at the beginning of the film. It's, not to take over from you, but it's pretty much the introduction of Hans Landa.
Yeah, which is the evil, which is the main antagonist.
The big bad of Inglourious Basterds, essentially.
He's a SS Nazi commander.
Yeah.
Who mainly is in task of hunting Jews.
Hunting Jews in France, yeah.
Yeah. And the scene opens up where he's visiting a cabin owned by a farmer.
Mm-hmm. And his family.
And his family. They're hiding Jews in their underneath their floor, and he's looking for them. And he interrogates him by telling him a story of.
He tells him a couple different stories. One, it's kind of I think mainly kind of about himself, like who he is. Tell him like they call me the Jew hunter, essentially, and how he got that name, and also mainly who he's looking for. Mainly the Shoshana family, the Dreyfus family, family of Shoshana Dreyfus, and there's a little bit of back and forth between him and the father of this family. And it's very interesting as to how they play Hans Landa in this film, because it's very easy, because of the fact that he's a Nazi, that you can make him the most
You
evil,
can make him the bad.
most evil son of a bitch to walk the planet. But they don't. He's very charismatic.
Like he's very pompous. He holds himself on like a very high
pedestal. Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, he thinks very highly of himself.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could overthrow Hitler if he wanted to.
And rule the Third Reich if he really had his mind set to it. And it's very interesting. Like it doesn't really seem like an interrogation, really.
No, it really doesn't. And I noticed you said like back and forth. From what I remember, there wasn't really a whole lot of back and forth. He's basically like
the leader of the conversation.
He's the leader of the conversation. Like the farmer, I think, has a couple lines. Then he hints to the Jewish family underneath his floor.
Well, let's also talk about the initial conversation before that. Before it's just him and the farmer. Yeah. There's a bit of back and forth there, and even a little bit during their conversation. But for the majority of it, yeah, Hans Landa is, you know, in the driver's seat of that conversation.
Yeah.
And pretty much steering it to wherever he wants to go.
Yeah. To where he does get the
information
he wants.
And now, just because, you know, a lot of these movies have, you know, been out for almost 20 years, some of them, especially Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, we will be going into spoilers.
Yeah.
I think there's really no other way to talk about these scenes without getting into spoilers.
Definitely.
But so if you haven't seen these movies, I guess don't watch this episode, because we're going to be pretty much spoiling the hell out of them, or at least some of them. At the end of the interrogation, it results in the death of the Dreyfus family, with the exception of Shoshana, who, you know, miraculously does not get shot.
Miraculously, no. Like, I think, does she just make like a beeline? Like,
so, well, like, it's like, you know, he calls in, you know, the soldiers, right, after their conversation is over, and he confirms the Dreyfuses are there, and they can't speak English. They can't speak English, so they can't speak English, so they can't really hear a lot of their conversation, so they don't know that they've been made, that they've been found out. So he misleads them through, I think, French.
Yeah, he's leading in the SS soldiers to come in, but he's actually
like trying to discourage the Dreyfuses from thinking that they've been made, thinking that everything's okay, and then
like he's escorting like the daughters of the farmer back in,
because there's about 3 daughters, and he escorts 3 soldiers back in. So they think it's the daughters, but really it's the soldiers. And they pretty much with their machine guns, execution style, start shooting through the floorboards.
Yeah.
Killing every member of the Dreyfus family miraculously, with the exception of Shoshana, who, once the shooting is done, then makes the beeline for the, I think, the woods, essentially.
Yeah, and then all you see is Hans Landa like come to the front door,
pulls out his pistol,
and just.
It seems like he's about to shoot Shoshana, but then he doesn't, and then it results in
the quote, just like
"Au revoir, Shoshana," and I kind of wrestled back and forth from the moment I saw that movie, from the first time I saw it, as to why he chooses not to shoot her, why he chooses just to let her go, and I think a lot of it is that, you know, he I want to say misunderstood her, but he underestimated her. He definitely did. Is the fact that, you know, she's a child. You know, there's a bit of a time skip from that moment on to like the rest of the movie.
Yeah,
got a good 5-6 year time skip, somewhere in there.
Yeah, like maybe 7.
Almost 7 year time skip, and it you know, because I think he thought that she's just a child. You know, she's not going to survive out there, but she does. She does survive, and a lot of it also could be she was just not in range. She was just not in range, because she was gunning, she was booking it.
Like, if he could have hit her, like, that would have
expert marksmanship right there. But that's number 12, and I will be taking over number 11, and this is from Reservoir Dogs, and it is the death of Mr. Blonde, otherwise known as Victor Vega. God. This whole scene, the whole lead up to this scene is probably one of the most fucked up parts of a Tarantino film.
It's really disturbing.
It is really disturbing. It's the fact
they took a really good song. Like, he took a really popular song.
Yeah, a song from the 70s, Stuck in the Middle with You.
Stuck in the Middle with You. He took it. Great song.
And edits it to this torture scene that we see.
And it's disturbing, but it doesn't leave your mind whenever you hear the song Caught in the Middle with You.
It's Stuck in the Middle with You, yeah.
Yeah,
but
Stuck in the Middle.
It's also like the whole lead up to this scene is very fucked up in the sense that, like, okay, so Mr. White, Mr. Orange, Mr. Pink, and Mr. Blonde are all in they're in the warehouse. Mr. Orange is bleeding out on the floor. He's passed out, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
And so it's just Pink, White, and Blonde. They go out to Blonde's car, and so, like, because during the shootout at the robbery, which we don't see expertly, by the way, he snags a cop and puts him in the trunk, and before he gets to the warehouse. And their original thing is that they're going to torture the cop for information, but they find out, he doesn't really have any information to really give. One of I think the son of, like, the main mob boss guy showed up at one point, and he says, like, a really good line where he says that, like, as to why, referring to why they're torturing him. He's like, if you beat the son of a bitch enough, he'll tell you he started the goddamn Chicago fire, but that doesn't necessarily make it so. And he's right. He's right, too. You torture this guy long enough, he'll tell you whatever he wants to hear just to get out of it. And what ends up happening is Mr. White, Mr. Pink, and the kid end up leaving to go get rid of some of the cars. So it's just Mr. Blonde with passed out Mr. Orange and the tied up cop. And he decides he's going to torture the cop anyway. And this shows how fucked up Blonde is. He just decides to torture him anyway just because he can, really.
Yeah,
it doesn't really care if he has...
no one else is really there.
To stop him anyway.
Yeah, Orange is passed out on the ground.
Yeah, and at this point he's been passed out for a while, so you probably would be fair and okay in thinking that he's probably dead.
Yeah.
And the whole lead up to this scene is intense, it's fucked up, and it's disturbing in the sense that what ends up happening is he turns on the radio, he pulls out this straight razor from his boot, and the song Stuck in the Middle with You starts playing, and he starts dancing to it. He starts dancing with it, just kind of dancing and singing along to the song. Looked like he's having a grand old time, like he's having fun. And then we get into the shit.
Yeah.
We jump into the shit in the sense that... And I like Tarantino for how he decided to shoot this scene. Is that it could have very easily shown him cutting off the ear of the cop, but he chooses not to. They move the camera to the side off screen, so we just hear what's going on, but we don't see it. And then he gets up and just has this ear in his hand, and he says this line that just, I think, sums up how fucked up he is in one line. He says, "Was that as good for you as it was for me?"
Yeah.
It's fucked up, and he starts. I think he slashes him a few times in the face with a straight razor, and at one point he leaves the room. The camera follows him. I think it's a handheld shot out to his car. He opens the trunk, grabs it's a carton of gasoline. It's like a gas can, and he douses the cop in gasoline, and like he's essentially just gonna light him on fire, burn him to death. And he pulls out this lighter, and this cop's essentially begging for his life in that moment. Giving good reasons as to why he should live. I got a kid, I got a wife. Don't do this, please don't do this. You don't have to do this. I won't tell anybody. And he's like, you're gonna say what you're gonna say, but I've heard it all before, and he just doesn't care. And he pulls out the lighter. He's about to throw it, and then, bam, the guns. He starts getting shot up with bullets. We cut to Mr. Orange. It's him that's shooting Mr. Blonde. And one of the way that Tarantino misleads you in this scene is that we don't see Orange. There's no insert shots of Mr. Orange at all through this scene. So we still think he's passed out.
Yeah, because it gives the viewer it
gives you more kind of a in-depth analysis of the situation of this torture scene.
Yeah.
And I think an insert shot would kind of take out of it and spoil the surprise, too. If we just see Orange waking up, reaching for the gun, we think, okay, maybe he's going to get to him in time. And he does get to him in time, but it works better if you don't see it coming. Because he doesn't just shoot Mr. Blonde. He empties the clip into Mr. Blonde, essentially killing him. He kills him, and it's revealed through that moment that Mr. Orange is, an undercover cop, essentially. And part of this whole heist. And Well, I'm not going to tell you everything that happens in this film. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch that. Things definitely get interesting from that point on. So,
all right,
you're up.
All right, number 10, the superhero monologue from Kill Bill Volume 2.
Otherwise,
now, while this movie is not liked among most people who like the Kill Bill Volume 1, this monologue actually is just, it really kind of sums up Bill to me.
Yeah, it definitely does. It sums him up as a character. He gives this what ends up happening in Kill Bill Volume 2, if you know it. I'll give a quick little summary about it. The bride is essentially this assassin, expert assassin, is part of this team of assassins. I think 7 Deadly Vipers is what they were called, or something like that.
Yeah.
And led by Bill, she ends up leaving, ends up pregnant with Bill's kid. They find her. They almost kill her, but they beat her within an inch of her life, and they shoot her in the head. She survives it, comes out of a coma 4 years later, and essentially goes on this revenge quest to kill Bill. Not only kill Bill, but kill the rest of the 7 Deadly Vipers. And by the end of Volume 2, we get to Bill's house.
Yep.
And we find out the daughter's
alive. Surprisingly, actually.
And we get to this final scene, or one of the final scenes in the movie, or sequences in the movie, where it's just, there's nobody else in the room, it's just Bill and the bride. They have this whole little back and forth, and he shoots her with this dart that's almost like a tranquilizer.
Yeah, it's almost like a tranquilizer, but then he also says that it has a truth serum.
Truth serum to it, and there's a little bit more back and forth, but he gets to this monologue about his love of comics and superheroes, more particularly Superman in general. And it goes something along the lines of it goes something along the lines of why he holds Superman above the rest, is the sense that all other superheroes, they have their superhero identity and they have their regular everyday identity. Bruce Wayne wakes up in the morning, he's Bruce Wayne, he has to put on the costume to become Batman. Peter Parker, same thing. But he says something along the lines of, it is in this line that Superman stands alone. Because he wakes up every day, he's Superman. It's Clark Kent is the costume. That's his view on humanity. And what is Clark Kent? He's weak, he's small, and he's a coward. And it's essentially Superman's view on the whole human race. And it could be argued it's Bill's view on the entire human race too.
Yeah. But still, it's still really just like it sums up Bill as a character.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
And it, again, not going to tell you all that happens, even though we pretty much just spoiled a good majority of Kill Bill and Kill Bill
just the
Volume 2.
final scene of Kill Bill.
Well, yeah, but we don't spoil the ending here.
But
in a way, we kind of the title.
We're going to spoil more as this list goes on in Kill Bill. But
yeah, but I guess not how the story overall ends. All right, so here we go. This one is from Inglourious Bastards, and that is the backstory of Hugo Stiglitz. Hugo Stiglitz, probably one of my favorite characters in all of Inglourious Bastards.
Not my favorite, but close second.
You can't deny the fact, though, just like real quick before I get into it, that Hugo Stiglitz is a badass. He really is.
Oh, yeah.
He is a badass character.
I have no doubt about that. It's just that, it's just there. I feel like there's like, let's see, the Bear Jew.
There's also...
He's to me, like, he's a great character.
Mm-hmm. There's also... a lot of people forget this, too, is that Michael Fassbender's in that movie as well.
Oh, yeah. Him and Mike Myers is in it, too.
Mike Myers is in it in a small part, too. I even at times forget he's in that. Even Brad Pitt's character, Lieutenant Aldo Rain, too.
Aldo Rain
is another good one. Hans Landa is another good one.
Yeah.
But this one's not about them. This is about Stiglitz.
What sets him aside from everybody else?
Well, it's just his backstory. It's even just the way he... Tarantino kind of has this edited, is that when we introduce him, it's kind of in a similar sequence as to how we get introduced to the Bear Jew, which is who's played by Eli Roth. He kind of takes this whole little detour from this scene from after, which is the aftermath after they just the bastards have essentially surprise attack this platoon of Nazis, and they have a few survivors, and Hugo Stiglitz is kind of put in the spotlight here. Essentially, his backstory is he was a German officer in the Nazi Party and the Nazi Army, yep. And the reason isn't exactly given as to why he does this, but he during one night kills I think 12 of his commanding officers. There's no real reason as to why he does it, which I kind of like in its own right. But it's brutal as to how he kills them.
It really is, because they even do like a couple cutscenes to showing on how it is.
It's brutal, man.
It's really brutal, but it wouldn't. It doesn't surprise me that a guy like him would actually do that. Yeah. But the reason why I don't believe we ever got
that backstory
too.
There's also one of the kills before we jump into that is there's a few kills I want to highlight here. We talked about one earlier was you think he's gonna suffocate this guy with a pillow, but
oh yes, you think he's gonna just give just the easy kind of in some sense the easy way out, just suffocate him.
Yeah, suffocate him. But what he ends up doing is he puts the pillow over his face, making you think he's gonna suffocate him. But he pulls out this dagger and starts stabbing him through the pillow in the face too. We don't see the aftermath of it, but you can just tell just from the scene. It's pretty brutal.
Yeah, he suffocates a guy by putting his hand in his mouth.
Yeah, that one was actually my personal favorite of it. Where I never seen I've seen characters suffocated in films, choked out. There's even a scene where that happens involving Hans Landa.
That scene I was just not a fan of. It's just something with me.
It's a brutal scene in its own right. It is a very disturbing scene as to what happens. Not to give too much away about it, but it's just the way that Stiglitz chokes this guy. He doesn't choke him by just wrapping his hands around his throat. He stuffs his hand
fist
into his mouth and just suffocates him by doing that. I don't even know if that's physically possible in real life. But apparently in regards
the Tarantino universe, that's
very much possible, especially for a man of Hugo Stiglitz. And the German high command decides, and once they capture him, that they were going to make an example of him. We don't really. They never really explain how.
They're probably gonna
execute him, but probably in a very brutal way.
Treason, yeah.
But probably in a very brutal way. But once the bastards heard of him,
they want to get him on their side,
and they do. They do. They break into where he's being held. They break him out, and there's a lot of other badass moments that involve Hugo Stiglitz, including one that involves a bar scene.
That's sad how he dies in that.
It is.
I was sad because he was a really good badass.
He was. Him and Fassbender worked pretty well together in that film.
He kind of redeems himself. Yes, his character is
a former SS
soldier, but he kind of redeems himself in a way when you think about it.
Mm-hmm. And it is kind of sad how he goes out, but it's also pretty badass as to how he goes out too, in a way that's only fitting for Hugo Stiglitz. Is
freaking gun to
point blank to a Nazi officer's balls essentially, and the last thing he says before he's
how
killed.
How does this feel on your nut?
Well, he says "Say auf Wiedersehen" to your Nazi balls, and pulls the trigger. And then there's
everyone just
everything just goes ape shit in that scene, and a lot of people die. I'm not telling everybody who all dies. Obviously, Stiglitz, sadly.
There's the pregnant lady in that scene.
There was a pregnant lady in that scene.
I was really just. It's just
Tarantino doesn't hold back, man.
He doesn't. I'm just good for him, but it's something that gets to me sometimes.
I think it gets to a lot of people.
Oh, come on! Did you really?
Is that really necessary to show that? I don't know.
But okay, but moving.
Yeah, you're up now.
Moving right along. Number 8 from Pulp Fiction. I know quite a few people who probably listen to this are going to know what I'm talking about. The Royale with cheese. That whole conversation.
So, For those that know and those that don't know, this scene takes place right after the intro to Pulp Fiction, right after the opening credits, and it's right after the whole Bunny and Ringo scene.
Yeah, but the thing with this whole movie is Tarantino split up every scene and he switched them all around. There's no order. You really have to sit down with a pen and a piece of paper
and really pay attention. This is one of those films where it is, in a way, kind of an anthology movie, but at the same time, it's not. It's there's 3 stories, not including the 2 intro scenes. There's Vincent Vega and Mia and Marcellus Wallace's wife.
There's Butch and Marcellus Wallace.
That's all.
Butch.
That's all kind of Butch. Involves Butch, but it's also this all unique scene. Then there's the Gold Watch story, which is my personal favorite of the 3 stories. And then there's another good one is the Bonnie situation.
We'll
get into that here in a little bit. But what's one thing is about this is we're introduced to Jules Winfield and Vincent Vega, and we get a little bit into their characters. If I remember right, Vincent had just come back from someplace in Europe. I think
it's
Amsterdam.
Yeah, he just came back from Amsterdam,
and he's kind of explaining the differences between Europe and America. And it's very, I mean, they got the, like he says in the film, they got the same shit over there that we got over here, but it's just little differences.
They use the metric system.
Mm-hmm.
We don't.
So like he goes to McDonald's at one point and he says like order a quarter, he asks for a quarter pounder with cheese. Then he says like they got the metric system over there. They don't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is. So they have their version of it is essentially called a Royale with cheese.
It's a Royale with cheese. Like it's not a quarter pounder with cheese.
It's a Royale with cheese. And does this include like everything that happens up with the apartment, or is it just this?
Yeah, it goes all the way up to there. Like this goes because it's a continuing.
It's a continuing conversation between Jules and Vincent. Yeah.
This goes all the way up till they hit hotel room
it was apartment
of a character named Marvin who has stolen something from their boss.
Well, and we're also just to sidetrack here for a little bit is it gets into what is one of the most debated things about Pulp Fiction is
what is in
this briefcase that they have stolen from Marcellus Wallace. There's a lot of different theories. One of the most out there theories I heard was that it's Marcellus Wallace's soul, and it's mainly because of the fact,
which is actually like I looked into that theory.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like that theory because it makes sense because he's got like a little scar, like a little
injury on the back of his neck. Yeah,
and
even then, like this might have just been he might have put this in just for shits and giggles, but. The code it's one of those coded briefcases that you have to have.
You have to like roll the number.
Roll the number to kind of open it.
It's 666.
It's 666. So that's what a lot of people. That's one of the kind of interesting theories. Another is that it's the diamonds from Reservoir Dogs.
That wouldn't surprise me either because think about it, it's Vincent Vega and
Victor Vega was in Reservoir Dogs, and there's this whole scene itself, there's another part of this scene itself that could have been its own category was the Ezekiel 25:17 speech to Brett, between Brett and Jules.
Yeah.
Right before Jules kills Brett. And
oh wait, that means it's Brett's apartment, not Marvin's apartment.
It's Brett's apartment, yeah.
Marvin's just sitting in the
Marvin's the guy there, yeah. He's one of the guys there. It's but I guess if you want to see how that plays out, you got to watch the movie.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, numbers.
Okay, 7. This one was one of the highlights of this movie for me.
Oh yeah.
But it's a good movie all around. But this was just one of the highlights for me, and that is the shootout at Candyland in Django Unchained.
Oh yes.
The way it's just this major spoilers on this one. It's this scene is racked with death after death after death, and it's what happens is Django and Christoph Waltz's character, King Schultz, Dr. King Schultz, just bought the freedom of Django's wife from Calvin Jay Candy, played
Brilliantly
by Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh my goodness.
He does such a good job in that movie.
Yes, he does.
And through the other different circumstances, which I'm not going to get into because there's so much that happens in this sequence, what ends up happening, to make it in a nutshell, Schultz ends up killing Candy, and Schultz gets pretty much blown to bits by this double-barrel shotgun. By
I think it was
a sawed-off, yeah, but it was a sawed-off double barrel, and he's killed by I think Calvin's,
it's one of his
henchmen, one of his henchmen. But this whole thing causes Django just to go apeshit. And what he does is he steals one of the guns, I think from the same guy that kills Schultz, kills him, kills Candy's lawyer, and this goes through and starts killing all of the other
every other guy inside
the mansion, and it's a brutal gunfight. It really is.
And during this whole gunfight, Sam Jackson is his character, which is like the
I think
house
slave, I guess is the way to call it.
But he's basically crying over the
loss of Calvin Candy. Yeah. And what ends up happening is, like, I don't remember what song he uses, but he edits this song to where Django gets like the last 2 6-shooters that he's able to get, and where he's just going through executing people left and right, and
just
it's bam, just killing everybody. It's brutal bloodbath.
Doesn't he end up using Schultz as a meat shield at one point?
No, because Schultz is in the other room. This takes place in like the main hall.
Oh no, he's using just some
random person.
Guy. He's using him as a meat shield. He's still going off with 2 6-shooters.
Yeah, but even then, I don't think he would use Schultz as a human meat shield.
Yeah.
Because I think he cared about him too much.
Yeah.
But well, like the others in this film or in this categories, if you want to see what happens, you got to go see the movie.
Yeah.
So I guess you're up.
All right, I'm up. Another number 6 from Pulp Fiction is the Golden Watch backstory. Oh my goodness!
This in itself is like, as we were talking about a little earlier, there's something mythic about this watch in this film.
There really is. Just like you hear like. What were you saying? You hear that Butch's great-grandfather...
He got it, I think, like the day he set sail for Paris to go fight in World War I. He then comes home, passes it on to his son, Butch's grandfather, who wears it, but gives it away to, I think, a gunner on a ship right before he and the rest of the Marines die at the Battle of Wake Island. And then that gunner, once the war is over, gives it to Butch's father. Butch's father wears that into Vietnam before he's shot over Hanoi.
And at that point, that is like the true heroics
of this watch.
And then
it delves into comedy.
It kind of goes a little comedic because then you learn of where this watch has been hidden.
Okay, so here's the thing. Before we get into that, the actor that's playing the soldier that was with Butch's father is Christopher Walken, and he does a really good job in this scene. Is that he tells the story that because they were prisoners in a POW camp in Vietnam.
Yeah.
He tells this story of that, his father sees this watch as Butch's birthright, so he's going to be damned if he lets anybody else, take it from him. So, to quote verbatim, what he says is he says, so he hid it. So this is what Walken says in the scene. And one place he knew he could hide something was his ass. So 5 long years he wears this watch up his ass, and then he dies of dysentery. He gives Walken the watch, and then literally this is the line he says to Butch. And Butch is like a 5-6-year-old kid at this time, and he's like, I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 2 years. Literally telling this straight to a child's face. I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 2 years. And then hands him the watch.
And then it cuts to
older
Butch
played by Bruce Willis. And there's a lot of other things that happen with the gold watch, which I think we will actually get into later. Anything else you want to add about the gold watch, or
no? I honestly think that's like top. Like, that's like a almost number one performance by Christopher Walken.
It's so good. It really is.
He just played, like, there's some, like, just the whole hiding it up his ass, like how he didn't crack during that. No, that's not a pun. No, that's not a pun for any of you internet viewers out there.
Jesus Christ.
But that's just like...
It shows how good Walken is,
yeah,
really.
he didn't crack. He delivered it, like emotionally.
So well in that scene. I mean, like, I can see Tarantino cracking up on the filming of that scene. I really can. It's like, literally, I hid this uncomfortable hunk of metal up my ass for 2 years.
Saying it to a 5-6-year-old
kid. Like, that makes me wonder, like, did the kid even would a kid even be able to comprehend that? Like, this watch has been up two people's asses. This has been up my father's ass. He wore this up his ass for 5 years before he dies of dysentery.
This watch in total has been up
two men's asses
7 years.
And over the course of 7 years. First it was up my dad's for 5 years, then it was up this guy's ass for the next remaining 2.
Jesus.
But as I was saying before we get into the other ones, there is something kind of mythic about this watch. I think a lot of it has to do with the backstory of it.
Definitely.
With, that this watch is seen and been through a lot and is now passed down to Butch. And pretty much, he values that watch more than anything in the entire world. Like, I think he even values it probably a little more than his wife.
Is that his wife or is that his girlfriend?
I think it's his wife. She's French, so pretty much what ends up happening, he fucks over Marcellus Wallace. They have to go on the run, and she packed a lot of stuff with them, but she forgot the gold watch at their apartment. So Butch is forced to, in the outcome of all this, to go back to his apartment to get the gold watch, and let's just say it just goes off the rails from there.
Yeah,
we'll get into that here in a little bit. My turn, right?
Yep, number 5.
Alright, so this is another one from Kill Bill Volume 1, and it's probably one of the greatest battle sequences I've ever seen in a film. To date, probably until Avengers Infinity War comes out. Is
Deadpool 2.
Or Deadpool 2.
Yeah.
But even just alone in a Tarantino film, this is one of the best fights I've ever seen. Is in Kill Bill Volume 1, the Bride versus the Crazy 88s. Right there at the end of the movie. It's so good. It's just the idea of just Uma Thurman wielding a samurai sword, having to fight this gang of basically modern day ninjas who are also wielding a multitude of weapons, majority of which are samurai swords. Yeah. And it's as brutal as you think it's going to be. It is very brutal. Arms, legs cut off, heads, eyes are gouged out. Axes are thrown.
Blood. Lots of blood is spilled.
It's spurting scene. Everywhere. There's a scene I think where she fights like the head guy of the Crazy 88s, and I think she cuts off all of his limbs. Yeah. Or at least his legs.
Then there's the head chick of the Crazy 88. The schoolgirl with.
The bodyguard of Oranishi. Yeah. Which happens, I think, before the fight of the Crazy 88s. It happens right before. I
thought no. She comes back in at the very end.
Are you sure you're not talking about Oranishi?
No. Yeah, I'm sure because I thought she came in. They fight for a little bit, then the Crazy 88 comes.
No, I know because I think the fight ends with her killing her. It ends with her killing Go-Go, which I think is her name. If I remember right. Because remember, like,
no, she doesn't kill Go-Go. She just cuts off her arm.
No. Okay, I know what you're talking about. That's like Oranishi's friend, right?
Oh yeah, because she's friends with Bill.
Yeah, she's friends with Bill. She leaves her alive to deliver a message to Bill. But as long as we're on that topic, there is a scene that happens right before her whole battle with the Crazy 88s, and it's when she fights Oren Ishii's, essentially the leader of the Yakuza. Now at this point in the whole Yakuza in Tokyo, Japan, her bodyguard Go-Go, who has this very weird unique weapon.
It's basically a mace. It's like a very long mace.
Essentially a ball and chain. Essentially is what it is.
Spiked ball.
Spiked ball and chain where like a switch has like this like spiked saw blades that can come out. Not like shoot up, but can come out of like a little port, extend from the actual ball itself, which leads to a pretty interesting fight between the two of them.
Yeah.
And while that is a good one-on-one in itself, I think the Crazy 88 fight has that topped.
Oh yeah, especially the score in that scene.
Yeah, the score, like that scene in itself, the whole sequence in itself is just really well edited, and it's really good editing. There's a point I think where
doesn't it shoot the black and white at one point?
Yeah. It actually, I was actually about to bring that up. I think she ends up gouging somebody's eye out, and that's when
black
it happens.
and white.
Like it's black and white for a good portion of the fight.
Because I think that's when like most of the gore really.
When a lot of the gore like there's one scene that happens where either she throws a hatchet or a hatchet is thrown at her, but she dodges it, and it hits at one of the 88s in the head, and it sends this guy flying back. But we track him through the majority of the shot. It's not like we cut to a different thing and he's flying back into a wall. We're just tracking him through that, and that's all I gotta say. If there's anything you want to add to that.
Nope, because mine actually happens right after this scene.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, the bride versus Oren Ishii.
Essentially the final battle in Kill Bill Volume 1, and it's really epic battle.
Basically, Oren Ishii is played by Lucy Liu.
Flawlessly played by her.
Oh yeah, very, very well done. She's one of the members of the
7 Deadly Vipers.
Yeah, 7 Deadly Vipers, and because Beatrix Kiddo is the Black Mamba, or the bride, whatever you want to know her as, because she is on a revenge plot.
Yes.
She's going after every assassin in the 7 Deadly Vipers.
Yes.
So basically, this is basically her first stop. Actually, this whole movie is building up to this first stop.
It's actually kind of told in a similar way of Pulp Fiction, where it actually happens later on in the film, and really it in the timeline of events happens first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like it's an amazing the sword fight in the whole scene is just amazing swordsmanship, and it ends with
the death of Oren Ishii.
Yeah, which is basically Beatrix Kiddo scalping
Lucy Liu, cutting off the top of her head. But one other thing I want to talk about is I'm talking a lot about how these scenes are edited, and there's a song that's actually a cover of the Animals' "Don't Let Me Be Misunderstood" is used in this.
Really?
And it's that song that that kicks in right when Oren Ishii kicks off her sandals and she takes her first step into the snow and kind of goes from there. It continues throughout the majority of the fight, and it's a really good cover of that song. I think it's by Santa Esmeralda is the group, and it's it works perfectly for that scene. It really illustrates the epicness of it and just how epic this one-on-one between the two is.
I didn't even know that's what the song was.
It sounds so different than like the actual the original version of it. So
yeah, but that's the whole thing, like, and especially like she delivers an apology like right before the final sequence of her Kiddo scalping her.
Isn't it like I think if I remember it, the apology wasn't for like her. It could be interpreted as her apologizing for what she did, for her participation in the attempt on her life.
Yeah.
But I think it's also the apologizing for not believing she had a Hattori Hanzo sword, because she tells her she admires her sword, for what she did to the Crazy 88s, and she tells her that it's a Hattori Hanzo sword, and she tells her you lie. And she finds out at one point through an injury. It's not the final injury, but it's an injury that hurts. That it's she's not lying. Let's just say that she finds out the hard way that she's not lying.
Yeah, I just believe you in general if you told me if you had that sword.
Like okay, like even if you flash it's like his swords have like this like emblem of like the hilt, this like kind of like dragon like monster, or something. Even if you flash that at me, I'm like, well, shit, that's a Hattori Hanzo sword.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you're talking business, all right.
Yeah. You're on the list.
You're on the watch list there.
All right.
Alrighty, so now we're getting into the top three. Top three of this list. This is actually going by a lot quicker than I thought it would.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, we're doing pretty good right now.
We're at 15 minutes.
No, that's bars.
Oh, that's okay.
That's
Okay.
bars.
Okay. Oh, that's bars. Never mind. I thought that was minutes. Wow. I shows how much of an idiot I can be.
No, you're good. You're not an idiot. You know this stuff, so I mean.
Yeah, for some parts. But anyways, back to the list. This is from Django Unchained as well. And this is the introduction of Calvin J. Candy.
Oh, yes.
Played by brilliantly, and it's actually insulting to me that he... yes, to me personally, that he did not win an Oscar for this role.
For this, but...
He won the next year, I think, for the next couple of years down for the Revenant.
Yeah, but the Revenant role, honestly, that one does top this role. But this is
but this is up there. This is up there in regards to his
really
roles.
up there.
And it essentially is they're looking. Django and Schultz are looking for Django's wife. At this point in the film, they go to Calvin J. Candy, who owns Candyland, which
is
the largest, I think,
feet.
cotton and slave plantation in the South, I believe, or they said Mississippi. So for those that don't know already, this takes place, I think, a couple years before the Civil War. So it's like 1860, 1861, somewhere in there, or 1858 or something, somewhere around that time. And so obviously slavery is still a thing at this point.
Yeah.
And they go to meet with him under the disguise that they are people that want to get into what is known as Mandingo fighting. And Mandingo fighting was essentially it's kind of like boxing in a way, but it's more of like...
It was more wrestle. It was more fight to the death.
It was more fight to the death, but you used the slaves, more particularly the men of the slaves. And this scene takes place during a Mandingo match at, I think, Calvin J. Candy's house, or one of his houses, or a place that he's conducting business. And it's when we first meet him. He's sitting there watching this fight, and there's a bit of back and forth between him and Schultz. And he turns the whole time he's sitting on this couch watching the fight close to this fireplace, facing away from the camera. The camera's a little ways back, so we can pretty much it's in a wide shot.
But it's still like he's
there.
Yeah.
And this is a really good edit, is the sense that like when he turns around, there's this really quick edit of just zooming in on his face.
And it's just like then turns around, and I expect to hear That's all I hear. I expect to hear like maybe like The Price is Right. That's all I expect to hear whenever he turns around, because he got like this mustache.
This mustache and the smile, this very charismatic smile that he gives the camera.
It's like da-da-da-da. I'm like, you won.
And even then, it's just like there's this sound effect to when the zoom happens, like, and it's just he kind of like almost like nods to the camera, almost like nodding to the audience, and it's
that's right. I'm here.
It's like, yep, that's DiCaprio. Yep. That's DiCaprio.
I'm here, not in Scorsese picture.
I'm in Tarantino. And he plays probably one of the best villains in any Quentin Tarantino film, and he's written some pretty good villains.
Oh yeah, he's written a lot of good
villains. I mean, I think it could be argued that every character in The Hateful Eight is a villain. Almost.
In some way,
shape, and form, yeah.
Yeah. Except, I don't view Jackson's character as a villain.
I don't view his character as a villain, but I mean like everybody else. Like,
the Hangman.
John Ruth the Hangman could be one.
Who's played by Kurt Russell.
Phenomenally done by Kurt Russell.
Channing Tatum's character.
Channing Tatum's character is definitely a villain. Bruce Dern's character as the Southern General, or ex-Southern General.
But he was never really in on anything though. Like
no.
he wasn't a good guy, but he
wasn't like prominent really.
Yeah.
In the film. But the one I was talking about is I can't remember that actor's name. In the Hateful Eight is the one racist guy that's supposed to be the sheriff of Red Rock.
Oh yes. I know who you're talking about.
He's been on like countless other stuff. He was in Django Unchained too.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Okay, this is gonna bother me. I gotta look this guy's name up. Hang on. But while I'm looking this up, it's he plays Candy phenomenally well. Oh wait, I remember the guy's name. Walton Goggins. Walton Goggins was the guy's name.
Walton Goggins,
yeah. And he's been on other stuff. He was on Sons of Anarchy. He was on a show called Justified.
Oh, yes, I heard about Justified. I know.
He was one of the main villains in Justified. He's been on countless other stuff, too. He's a really good actor. But, anyways, back to Candy. He plays this really evil son of a bitch in this movie.
It really is. It's just like on top of being a slave owner.
He's just this evil, despicable son of a bitch. He really is. Like
there's... Okay, going off topic because this is the last entry for Django Unchained.
Yeah, it is.
Just going off that, it's like he's really... Like, there's a scene in the movie that...
I think I know which one.
You know where I'm going?
I think I know which one you're talking about.
It's at dinner, and Calvin has King Schultz and Django.
It's right after, just to add a little context, he has made them for what they... He has kind of made them for what their original goal is.
Yeah.
He's seen through their facade, essentially.
Yeah. So, basically, Kerry Washington plays Django's wife.
Mm-hmm.
And during the argument between Schultz and Candy, or Candy is yelling at them, calling them out for what they are, for what their goals are. So he slams his hand on a glass.
Yeah, it seems like a wine glass, ends up breaking the wine glass.
Wine glass on his hand. Now DiCaprio actually did this and slit his hand.
Ends up cutting open his hand. And it's not a prop, it's not intentional. He actually cut open his hand.
Yeah. He was meant to just slam it on the table. The wine glass happened to be there. He slammed it down.
Broke the glass
into his hand.
And
his hand is bleeding.
Almost like a stuck pig too.
Yeah.
He's bleeding a lot.
Profusely in this. And so just to add more tension to this scene.
He doesn't stop.
He keeps going and ends up
smearing the blood onto Kerry Washington's face. And he doesn't stop, too. You would think that, something like that happens, they would stop the scene and attend to him and make sure he's okay.
No,
but he keeps going.
Tarantino
he doesn't stop.
Has said he kept going.
He kept going. He wanted to stop the scene, but DiCaprio just kept going.
Yeah, he didn't stop the whole entire scene.
And when it was done, and when his part of the scene was done, he got a standing ovation by the entire crew because of how good he did. And rightfully so. It's a really good scene.
Which makes you think, do you think they made takes of that? No. I mean, before he ended up Maybe. Do you think he just got to the point where he was just like, screw it, I'm going for one take.
Screw it, I'm going for it, let's do it. And it's possible. It might also just be that, it was I think it was definitely unplanned in the moment of the injury on his hand. I think he might have been when it happened, he just made a quick second decision, I'm just going to keep going.
Yeah.
This is to enhance this, and he did, and it definitely pays off.
I mean, I know being a theater kid that I've had to do retakes of.
And I know from working on short films and working on Living with Trevor and Vine Avenue that you don't just do one take of a scene. You do multiple takes, sometimes from different angles.
And sometimes the actor can get really
into it.
Really into it, and also they can get really stubborn and get done. Just no, I'm done. No, I'm doing this once and we're getting it.
Yep.
I could see if Leonardo, if that's what kind of happened on set.
Maybe, potentially, but regardless of what ended up happening, it makes for a really good scene. It shows you how good of an actor DiCaprio is.
It really does.
I mean, when I look back on that scene, I just kind of think to myself, how did he not win an Oscar for this? Honestly. That alone deserved an Oscar.
Honestly.
That scene alone where he's going off on both Django and Schultz, with this hand that's bleeding profusely.
I can also see where, part of that, I like where that whole thing came from, that scream came from, was partially from the glass puncturing his hand.
Maybe. Well, I'm trying to remember how it goes. I can't remember if like he screams then slams the hand down, or if he's slams
screaming
the hand
while he's. Oh no, never mind then.
It's the scream and then he slams his hand down.
No, he's doing it like same time, just like
Maybe I'm gonna have to go watch that movie again. I gotta see that now, or at least that scene. But all
right,
you
so
are
my turn?
up. It's the last. It's the second to last Pulp Fiction.
This one is definitely on one of my lists. Is definitely on my top list. It is from Pulp Fiction, and it is I Shot Marvin in the Face.
So
basically, okay, I think I got this.
You got this one.
I got this.
Okay.
All right.
Go ahead.
Muscles are popped.
I'm just gonna hang back. I'm just gonna hang back from the majority of this. You go ahead.
So basically, what has happened? So the conversation between Jules and Vincent, leading up to the apartment, where Brent has something of Marcellus Wallace.
Yeah.
Basically, is stolen from him.
The briefcase. Yeah.
Yeah, a briefcase from him. This is during this whole ordeal. Sam Jackson is executing each guy that is in the.
Was these guys? I don't know if it was.
No, yeah, it was all three. It was all three of them.
It was all three except Marvin. Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically, like, once they get the case, he basically shoots all three of them.
Mm-hmm.
One guy pops out of the bathroom, didn't even know was in there.
And he's got like a big gun. It's like a 44 Magnum or something like that.
Yeah, it's like a big barrel gun. And he starts shooting at Vincent and Jules. Hits neither.
Miraculously, the bullets do not hit them.
Yeah, just misses them completely.
Yeah.
And then they shoot him.
Yeah, they kill him.
And he kind of looked like Jerry Seinfeld.
A little bit.
Like, that's what a lot of people thought for a little bit. It was Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah.
Like, what's the deal with that?
What's the deal?
But, so then, the only person they don't kill in this apartment is the character Marvin, who I'm guessing is an informant for Marcellus.
Yeah, I think he was like an inside man.
Yeah.
For them, like telling them where the briefcase is and how many people were in the apartment.
Yeah. So basically, they leave with Marvin, and Jules is in this. They leave in a car, in this whole on their way back to go see Marcellus with this briefcase.
Mm-hmm.
And during this car ride, Jules starts getting real. How do I say this?
He's real theological.
Yeah, he gets real. Thank you. He gets real theological in the car, just like, oh, I think that might have been like
a sign from God.
A sign from God that I need. And then he ultimately decides
to quit.
He's done.
To quit being a hitman. Yeah.
He's driving, and so
I think
Vincent asked for Marvin's opinion on the whole thing, and Marvin's just like, man, I don't know.
I don't even have an opinion.
I don't even have an opinion. And Vincent, gun in hand, turns around and has the gun pointed at Marvin. He's not going to shoot him. Has no intentions of shooting this guy.
I think he's just having a conversation.
He's just having a conversation with this guy. And he's like, well, you have to have an opinion.
Well, do you think that God came down from heaven and stopped? And then the gun goes off.
Then,
essentially,
Marvin's head basically
just opens up on like the back windshield.
Back windshield of this car.
And they're covered. Jules and Vincent are covered in blood in this scene, just from that.
And it's I think it was all white interior.
Yeah, all white interior of a car.
All white interior. So there's no way that
they can hide this, really.
That's even what they say. Like, you can't hide this.
And plus, the one thing that like Jules says, well, for one, like the reason why we have this called "I Shot Marvin in the Face" is that like Jules' response to it after the gunshot is like, "What the fuck's happening, man?" And then it's like, "Oh man, I shot Marvin.
Marvin in the face."
Jules is like, "Why the fuck you do that?" He's like, "I don't know. The gun went off. I don't know why." And he's like, "You must have gone over a bump or something." He's like, "Car didn't hit no motherfucking bump." And it can't. I'm still to this day wondering how does something like that happen? How does the gun just go off? And I don't even think like he
didn't have his finger on the trigger. He was just.
Or even if he did, it was in like the right next to the trigger. It wasn't like directly on the trigger.
Yeah. So even if a bump hit it, he still wouldn't like hit the trigger.
Hit the trigger. So somehow the gun goes off, kills Marvin, and they have to. And like one of the points that Jules says is like, it's like, look at this mess, man. We're in the middle of the street in broad daylight.
All white interior covered with blood.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder, like, what would the cars behind them thinking if they saw that? Like, directly, like, in the same lane as them. Like,
oh, maybe they're shooting a horror movie.
Maybe. Or maybe somebody's head literally just got opened up in the back windshield. Which is literally, like, they cut to, I think, a car, like, the interior of, like, what would be, like, a car behind them. Where, like, it's, like, showing, like, the windshield.
And like, it
is just red. Like, a moment, like, for one moment, it's Marvin's head. And then the next, it's just red.
It is just... It's not red. It is, like, thick red.
Like thick... Like it's the color of blood red, but it's, like, thick, meaty red.
It's not dripping down. Like,
it's, like... It kind of makes me wonder, like, if he had, like, one of those, like, hollow point bullets or something that just, like, expand when they enter a wound.
Well, especially from that close, like,
and especially just from like the outcome of it, you know, just his head is just opens up. It's just everywhere, you know, blood, brain matter, skull everywhere in the car and on them. That wraps up my thoughts.
That wraps up mine like completely. Here, let's hit.
All right, so this is the number one. The number one moment is also from Pulp Fiction. It is Butch saves Marcellus in the Go Watch story. So now we enter into what I consider to be one of the most fucked up parts of this story and possibly of Pulp Fiction. And so what ends up happening is, to add on to what I said earlier about the gold watch, back on number 6, he goes back to his apartment, gets the gold watch, kills Vincent Vega, runs, and on his way back to the hotel, runs directly into Marcellus Wallace. While
he is in a car and he just
runs him over. Well, at first, like he stops like a stoplight,
and then all you hear from Marcellus Wallace is
"motherfucker" or something like that.
I thought it was "son of a bitch," like "son of a bitch."
Maybe.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember. I can't remember what it was now, and I just watched Pulp Fiction a couple weeks ago. Damn it. Anyway, so what ends up happening, and he comes out, like, it happens weird, too. It happens weird. Like, he comes out, like, it looks like he's holding coffee and
he has coffee in donuts. Like, I think he was on his way to meet... Oh, no, wait.
I think he was on his way back to the apartment to meet with Vincent, essentially. Yeah. They're going to have coffee and donuts while they wait for Butch to show up. And, shit, no, I want donuts.
Same.
Anyways, what ends up happening is Butch, upon seeing, I think Marcellus tries to reach for his gun, and then he floors the car and hits Marcellus, and then gets hit by another car as he enters the intersection. We see the aftermath of it. Marcellus is woken up. Butch, I think, has a broken nose from the car accident.
Yeah.
And once helped up, Marcellus just pulls out his pistol and just starts shooting at Butch. He chases Butch into this pawn shop. Now here's where the fucked upness begins.
Oh yeah.
And
but it's so good.
It's so good, but I'm just saying, like, we're gonna get a little lengthy on this one. I'm probably gonna explain the entire sequence here, just because it needs to be explained in its entirety to understand it. I think. You give it that?
Yep. Nope. Yes. Let's do it.
All right. Let's do it. So let's do it. Okay. So Butch enters the shop first, then Marcellus. He begins attacking Marcellus.
They start basically swinging at each other on the
floor, and the guy that runs the pawn shop pulls out a shotgun, pumps it, and is
tells
prepared
him to get off. Tells Marcellus to get off.
Or no, tells Butch to get off Marcellus.
Yeah.
And because Butch is about ready to kill Marcellus, he has Marcellus's gun in his hand, is about ready to pull the trigger, and he tells Butch to approach the counter. He knocks Butch out. Marcellus passes out, but before he passes out, he sees the guy pull up a phone,
Zed,
call up Zed, and says, "Zed, it's Maynard. Spider just caught a couple flies." Marcellus passes out. They wake up in... Oh, God.
I don't think we have to go too graphic in on this one.
Not too graphic, just like the basic outlines.
Okay.
Basic outlines.
So they are tied. They are tied up.
Ball gags are in their mouths, and they're tied to these chairs. And Zed shows up, and they go into like Maynard. I think is the guy that runs the pawn shop. Goes into the next room. Should we even address this?
No, just
okay. So if you want to see Pulp Fiction, to go watch this. When you get to this scene, just watch it.
Watch it.
Okay, so
it's more of a watch. It's not more of a tell, especially for YouTube. It's not really.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna get I don't know, demonetized or something.
We're not
even though we're gonna get demonetized, even though we're not even monetized. Or my channel's gonna get taken down. I don't want that. Anyway, so what ends up happening is Marcellus is taken into the other room. I'm not gonna say what happens.
Yep. No.
And this adds a lot to Butch's character. Butch ends up getting out of his chair, ends up getting free of his binds, and heads upstairs, grabs Zed's keys, which I think were also to the pawn shop and to his bike, to his motorcycle outside. And one thing I found interesting, which I was talking to you about earlier, was before Butch tries to leave, he looks back twice. Once, just like real quick, and the other when he's about to open the door and opens the door. And my theory was that he's having a battle of conscience. You know, his conscience is kind of saying, we shouldn't leave him. So what ends up happening is he closes the door, he goes back to the pawn shop. Kind of takes his time a little bit, too. Kind of choosing
he doesn't really like...
Like, okay, let's grab something, let's go save Marcellus.
He takes his time and just like... You think like he was just like he was enjoying just like a little bit
of like, you know what, I'm gonna let him suffer a little bit.
A little bit. Let's just see what we got in here.
And like
baseball bat, nah, chainsaw.
Hammer, chainsaw. Chainsaw, I understand it would have been too loud, they would hear him coming.
Oh yeah. But then he finds a samurai sword.
And he pulls out the samurai sword, heads back down to the basement, and what is one of the best shots of the movie, where he's walking down the stairs, samurai sword in hand, goes into the room, kind of almost hacks one of the dudes to pieces.
Just like a straight dagger.
Straight strike downward, cuts the dude open, and then stabs him. And then...
Not even just like a normal like stab. He
walks
in front of him.
Does like a backward stab.
Backward stab to his side. Just
essentially killing Maynard, essentially. And, well, he gets Zed cornered.
Yeah.
And Marcellus gets a hold of a shotgun at one point. Should we?
Shoots his private off. He shoots his private off.
Okay. We're heading into that. Okay.
That's all we're going to say. He shot his private off.
Well, I don't think it was entirely his private. Like, it looked like part of the way a shotgun works is that it just kind of spreads.
Yeah, it spreads.
It spreads the minute it leaves the barrel. So it kind of got him a little bit in the stomach too.
Yeah, but he, in retrospect though, he shot him in that area.
Mm-hmm. And in a way, you know, like, so we're going back to the Gold Watch backstory. You know, it has seen and been through so much. Both World Wars, the Vietnam War, and the 90s really didn't have a notable war. You know, there was kind of a bit of a skip. I guess you could say the Gulf War, maybe.
Yeah.
But even then, like, it's not like as famous as, like, you know, the Iraq or Afghanistan war as, like, you know, in the most recent times, or as, you know, Vietnam or World War I or World War II. But what essentially happens in this scene, in my personal opinion, is Butch earns, through his ordeal and going back and saving Marcellus, has earned the right to own and wear the gold watch. Hence why the story is called the Gold Watch story. And essentially now has earned the right to not wear it, but as to, should him and his wife have a kid, pass it down to his kid. And it's a really good story. It's all of his movies are really good. And is there anything else you kind of want to say about the Gold Watch?
The Gold Watch, honestly, this movie had so, like, the stories got mixed around so much. Like, the first time I watched it, I was really confused.
I think most people were.
I was like, wait a minute, why is this happening here, but this is happening at the end of the movie? Why is this happening right here when it should be happening at this part of the movie?
Yeah, I mean, like, once you watch it a few times, especially if you've never heard of it, or if you've heard of it but not really had much knowledge of it, after you watch it a few times, you kind of get the timeline down pretty well in your head as to where, like... So here's how it would go for those... I'm just going to break it down real quick, not go into huge details about it, but here's how it would go. You got the intro with Jules and Vincent first in the timeline. Then you got the whole Royale with cheese sequence. Then you got the Bonnie situation, which is essentially the last story in the lineup of the film. You have that happen first. You have the scene with Butch and Marcellus, which happens after that.
Yep.
And then you have Vincent Vega and Mia Wallace, their story, which happens, which would be the Mill story in the timeline. And then you have the Gold Watch story, which is essentially what happened last.
Yeah.
Yep.
Nope, yep.
I think that covers
that sums up Pulp Fiction in a nutshell.
And if it would be a much more linear type of way. But I think it works better the way he told it.
Yeah. It definitely does. It gives you, like... It's not as much like there's more action in the places that action needs to be than if he did it in a linear way.
Yeah, I think it would very much, if he did it in a linear way, it would feel very much of a slow burn movie.
Yeah.
And I can see it from the violence standpoint. And I'm gonna get on a little bit of a soapbox here. Hope you don't mind. Not a huge soapbox.
Oh, by all means.
A lot of people have criticized Tarantino for his overuse and citation of violence in his films, mainly the use of graphic, stylized violence in his films, in the sense that it doesn't need to be there. But what he does, different versus like, I guess what would be known as torture movies.
Oh, like Saw.
Or like Saw or Hostel, stuff like that, is he uses violence as a way to advance the story. If you really think about it, like, let's use Pulp Fiction, for example. Is there any time that there is violence in that movie that doesn't move the story forward?
No, especially when you blow Marvin's... Especially when they shot Marvin in the face, like, some people would consider that, like, really just, like, that was unnecessary. No, it moves the plot forward.
It moves the plot forward.
It gets them to, like...
It gets them in a scenario that where they need help.
Yeah.
And... I guess the most extreme thing that maybe could have been dumbed down a little bit, but even then not so much, is what happens in the basement of the pawn shop.
Yeah, that really could have been...
That could have been trimmed down a little bit.
But then again, I feel like you wouldn't get, like, the necessary, like...
Feel out of it.
Feel of, like... These guys are really sick guys.
And that Marcellus and Butch are in a really fucked up scenario.
Yeah.
And I can't think of, like, any real scene that in a Tarantino film that, in regards to violence, that doesn't need to be there. I'd say the one where it's, like, most stylized and most use of violence is probably the Kill Bill movies.
Definitely, especially with the Crazy 88.
Yeah, the Crazy 88 is just, like I said, like... bloodbath galore, essentially.
It looks really cool, though, in black and white.
It really did. It kind of... I guess the closest thing I can compare it to, like, violence-wise and looking good in black and white is the noir version of Logan.
I actually need to see that.
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I haven't actually sat down. I have the Blu-ray of it.
Yeah. But
I haven't actually... Which comes with the option of the noir version. But I haven't actually sat down and watched it.
That's something I need to watch, because honestly, that movie's, like, less gory compared to this, but...
Oh, less gory, but it's still pretty violent. It's still a pretty violent movie compared to, like... but when compared to Tarantino films, it's kind of low on the scale of violence.
Yeah.
And blood. It's
but
much more realistic.
But for a comic book movie, it's pretty... Besides, unless you want to include...
maybe the seizure scenes? The seizure scenes?
The Caesar scenes?
The Caesar scenes, yeah.
King Caesar decides to pop up out of nowhere.
Yeah, and Logan has to fight him. Anyway, what I mean by the seizure scenes, if you haven't seen Logan, is Charles Xavier suffers from Alzheimer's or dementia, one of those brain disorders in the film. And it explores an idea of what happens if you put a brain disease or disorder in the most powerful brain in the world. And it's not pretty. It's not pretty.
It really is. Well, it's not all pretty, but it also, like, it stops time.
It stops people, their movements. Kind of like how he did in, like, the earlier X-Men movies.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's much more painful versus how it was in the other X-Men movies. It's much more distorted. As you notice, there's a couple times where I think it happens before the hotel sequence.
Yeah.
It's where they have him in, like, this warehouse on the border of Mexico, I believe.
Yeah, it's out in, like, the desert.
On the desert, away from everybody, essentially, with the exception of Caliban, who's taking care of him. And he has this seizure that, stops Caliban in his midst. And it causes a great amount of pain to everybody that's in the vicinity of this.
It seems like the pain he was feeling when he first heard the voices is now being
transferred to everybody else.
Yeah, now everyone's just like, oh no, now this is what it feels like.
And even then, it's amazing. I think it's also the reason why Logan didn't stop is because of his healing factor. He could take it more.
Yeah.
He could withstand more, and it. Even though I know this is about Quentin Tarantino, I just got to talk about this real quick. It has one of the best sequences I've seen in the film where Logan enters the hotel room and he has to kill the rest of these Reavers before he stops Charles' seizure.
Yeah.
And there's some where, like, he's uppercutting dudes with his claws, he's punching them through their face with the claws, and it's brutal, and it's a really cool sequence.
Before he gets into the hotel room is my favorite kill because he's just like, you could see the guy's just looking out like the side of his head. And you just see like Logan put his fist to the guy's head.
To the guy's temple.
Just like one spiked like through his head.
Yeah, and it's cool because they don't, like, normally something like that happens, they fall to the ground dead. That doesn't happen because
this guy is still standing.
They're all still standing until the seizure stops. And then the seizure stops and then they
fall to the ground.
They fall to the ground. And but anyway, back to Tarantino.
Great filmmaker.
I'd like to introduce a new segment here.
A new segment? What is this new segment?
It's just something I'm making up on the spot here, which is, it's not really planned.
Cool.
It's called Shooting the Shit. Great. Now we got music. Great.
Hey, done by myself.
Done in studio by Jacob here.
What?
But as long as we're on the topic of Tarantino, according to him, he's got 2 films left in him, which the one he's making now, and the one I think that he surprised everybody with the announcement of
Star Trek.
The Star Trek movie that he's going to be making.
Because no one really knows if this is a Star Trek movie or if this is like a Star Trek-esque kind of film.
Just set in the world of Tarantino.
Yeah.
And it makes me wonder in the sense that I think it has been confirmed, but I don't know if it's going to happen fully. Because, there's a lot of things that have to happen before a film is made, and a lot of films just nothing comes.
They get talked about, but then they just kind of fall.
They just kind of fall flat. Nothing happens with them for years, or even just in general. And one question I want to ask you: how first off, the prelude question before the actual question.
Okay.
How versed are you in Star Trek? Like, how well do you know the lore of Star Trek?
I know that there's Commander Kirk.
Captain Kirk. Captain James T. Kirk. Yeah.
Captain James T. Kirk, who was played by
Shatner.
Chris Pine and William Shatner, respectively.
Mm-hmm.
But I have honestly only seen the first remake.
Okay. That's
Fully. I've seen like bits and pieces of like the Next Gen and the original
series. Yeah.
The original series. Like I've seen bits and pieces of those.
And I guess the main thing I'm kind of wondering is I have a bit, like, I'm not trying to put myself over you here at all.
You know more about Star Trek than me?
The main 3 things that were watched in my house, actually main 4 things that were watched, in my house, looking back at my childhood, was Star Wars, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Okay, so, take one of those out. I have like the same
Okay, so I'm guessing Star Trek.
No, yeah, take out Star Trek and like it was Star Wars, Lord of the Rings,
Sam Raimi Spider-Man. Okay, so
I love Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies.
I think a lot of people did, man, with the exception of probably Spider-Man 3.
But it has its
moments. It has its moments. Don't get me wrong on that. It has its moments, but overall,
Okay. But
anyway,
your official question.
But before I ask the official question, I'm not like a know-it-all in regards to Star Trek, but I've seen the original series, I've seen Next Gen, I've seen Voyager. I haven't really seen Deep Space Nine, just didn't really see my cup of tea. Yet to watch the prequel show Enterprise.
The one that just came out?
No, that was one before that one. I watched the most recent prequel one, I think Star Trek Discovery, which was one of the showrunners was Brian Fuller of American Horror Story.
Oh.
Yeah, he has his hands in a lot of shows. I mean, like, he was the showrunner to American Gods, to obviously American Horror Story.
Yeah.
To what show was it that you mentioned? I can't remember the title of it.
911.
The 911 show for Fox, and obviously also, as I mentioned, Star Trek Discovery. But the question I was going to ask is, now that that's out the way, is what do you think we will be seeing in a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek movie?
What won't we be seeing in a Quentin Tarantino Star Wars movie?
Star Trek.
Star Trek.
Although a Star Wars movie, I kind of want to see it.
I just bring Sam Jackson in. Let's
bring Sam Jackson as the Sith Lord. I want to see him as a Sith Lord.
I would like to see him as a Sith Lord too.
But we're on Star Trek.
But right Star Trek, honestly though, what won't we see? Like, I mean, oh man, what will we see? I'm guessing a lot of alien guts.
A lot of alien guts, maybe.
A lot of blood,
probably a racist character to aliens, or a specific alien race. Maybe.
Oh, Star Wars did that already.
They did?
Yeah, in the prequels.
Who? Are we talking about Anakin?
No, if you're talking
like the Sand
Jar Jar Binks.
Well, I mean, like I meant like a character who is prejudiced against other alien races.
Oh, never mind.
Not like a racist representation.
Oh, okay, I was gonna say, dude, Jar Jar, the two.
No, but I mean, like, like he has a common theme. Just like Hateful Eight, for example, like the dude that's gonna be the sheriff of Red Rock, who is racist.
But that was. Oh wait, but Zed and what's his name were also.
Zed and Manny were racist. But then that kind of makes sense. They kind of made them as like Southern hillbillies kind of a way.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there was one on either Kill Bill or Inglourious Basterds.
There really wasn't in any of those. Like, they hated, like, the Nazis hated everybody.
Nazis hated everybody that wasn't of their Aryan race.
Yeah.
But it's kind of hard to pinpoint, what exactly what we could be seeing in a Quentin Tarantino Star Trek movie.
Honestly, there's probably going to be a lot of, like,
violence.
Phasers going
on. People getting blown up because of a phaser.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to see what it would look like. Would it look clean and crisp as of now, or would he kind of stick to kind of a graininess to it?
Honestly, what I'm seeing, you've seen the Black Mirror, right?
I've seen some of Black Mirror, yeah.
Okay. So there's a show called the USS.
Oh yeah, season 4, episode 1. Yeah.
Yeah, season 4, episode 1. It's kind of like that's the kind of feel, except not as dark.
Yeah, not as dark. It's definitely gonna probably be in the style of a Tarantino film.
Yeah, style of the Tarantino film, but also not as dark.
And the one thing I'm trying to compare it to is there's a show on AMC called Preacher. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've heard of it. I have not watched it yet.
Well, and I'm not going to spoil a whole lot for you on that, but it's there's a sequence in the first episode. It's actually, I think, one of the first scenes where it's in space, and where they show in space where they show the entity coming to Earth, and it's not done in like the most modern way, like where we see space in films. It's done in, it looks almost like a film from the 60s, set in space, that kind of a style where it's kind of grainy. You can kind of tell the set is a set or even a miniature of like asteroids or planets, and the background is kind of a grainy footage. I'm kind of wondering, like, would that be how he would depict space? Because, he has this love of older films, of exploitative films too, that didn't exactly have the best budget. Some of them didn't.
But they were still.
But they still were kind of good.
They were still good movies.
And I'm kind of wondering, is that how he will depict space? Like, and then, like we get the first shot of that, we just see space like that, and then the USS Enterprise comes out of orbit. Or something.
I would just like to hear him say "Space, the Final Frontier."
Quentin Tarantino say
that? Yeah, I just like to hear him say that.
That would be kind of cool to see.
Yeah.
And to also add a little bit more to our expertise, and as long as we're on the topic of Tarantino, I'm going to ask you a few more questions.
Okay, shoot.
Some more about his unmade projects. So for those that don't know, and those that do know, I think probably very few people know about this, because the film never got made, was in the 90s, Tarantino was going to try to make a Luke Cage movie. So,
all right.
You being a Marvel fan.
Okay.
But you're not, you and I both do not know everything about Marvel Comics.
And we also, we don't strictly, stick to Marvel or DC.
And don't stick to certain characters. We don't strictly... I'm going to be honest here. I'm going to be full-blown cards on the table here. Before the Marvel Netflix show came out about Luke Cage, and before Jessica Jones, where he was first introduced, I did not know a whole hell of a lot about Luke Cage.
No?
I still don't necessarily. I know his origin, I know his powers, I know some of his story arcs, but I don't know the guy's rogues gallery. I don't.
Yeah. I don't know everything about him either. The first time I was introduced to him, he was Power Man.
Yeah.
In the Amazing Spider-Man cartoon series on Disney.
Yeah.
It was
that episode.
Yeah, he was Power Man.
Mm-hmm. And
not Luke Cage.
Really the only two villains I know from him. Cottonmouth and Diamondback, and that's from the Netflix show.
Yeah.
Those are really the only two serious villains I know from him. So I'm kind of... The question I'm going to ask is very similar to the Star Trek one. What do you think we would have seen in the Luke Cage film? In Quentin Tarantino's Luke Cage.
Okay.
What is it?
Honestly, I honestly think we probably would have seen Sam Jackson back,
I heard, because he had a script done.
Yeah.
At the time. There was a script done, it was finished, he was entering pre-production and casting phase before it was dropped.
Yeah.
And he was considering either Sam Jackson or Lawrence Fishburne.
I can honestly...
For Luke Cage.
I can see Lawrence Fishburne, actually.
And I think this would have come out the mid-90s. This was Boys in the Hood era Lawrence Fishburne. So where he's very kind of lean, but he has this very kind of big demeanor about him.
Then Lawrence Fishburne is a definite, but I honestly think we would have seen something really I'm thinking of the equivalent to Sin City.
You mean gore-wise or?
Gore action-wise.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we would have seen something close to Sin City.
I could see that.
Granted, Luke Cage is not that kind of a character. It's not that kind of a comic.
It's not really, but it's just that when you take his powers in consideration, the fact that the man has unbreakable skin, he is super strong. People are gonna get fucked up going up against him.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's no doubt in my mind that would happen, but it would seem with that kind of power, that kind of stuff would happen. I mean, not exactly Sin City stuff, but.
And this is my little. I'm gonna add a little critique of the Luke Cage series, and this is not taking away from the series at all. In my way,
it's a great series.
It is a very great series, and I'm very much looking forward to season 2. And
everyone's looking forward to season 2
of that show
because season 2 for Jessica Jones is already out.
I still have yet to see it, and I need to kind of sit down and watch it. Just because in regards to Marvel and Netflix, I'm kind of a completionist
Yep.
So I need to kind of sit down and just watch it. And the one thing I think people kind of unanimously kind of agree with, they don't really have a problem with Diamondback. I don't have a problem with Diamondback as a character. I kind of liked his motivation somewhat for the most part. But I think they killed off Cottonmouth too quickly. They were setting him up to be essentially the Wilson Fisk of the show. And, you had a really good actor in the form of Mahershala Ali, who, did a phenomenal job as Cottonmouth. I think the same year that came out, he was in Moonlight, too.
That was that. Oh.
Yeah, he plays Juan in Moonlight. He's Chiron's, father figure.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's him. He won for those that don't know, also, I don't know why I keep saying that, but he won a supporting actor Oscar, I believe, for that. And rightfully so.
Yeah.
He does a really good job as Juan in that movie.
Oh, yeah.
And I still think that, granted, he's not as strong as Luke Cage at all. I think, if it was just, if he didn't have, the Diamondback suit, like the Diamondback wears at the end of the season to take on Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Luke Cage probably could have snapped him in half like he was nothing.
It really wouldn't surprise me if that would have happened.
And frankly, but he was also a very good tactician. He knew how to strike Luke Cage and where to strike him where it hurt. And I could totally see, if, he was supposed to send that suit up to Diamondback, if at the very end of the season, if they kept him around, him stealing that Diamondback suit for himself and just taking on Luke Cage. It would have been an awesome fight, too.
Oh, yeah, it would have been a kick-ass fight. Definitely for, a Netflix series. They do, really good on their Marvel comics.
Yeah, they do really good on their fights. They do a really good job on their fights. Here's how I would have done it. Not that I'm anybody to, have any power in that regard, at least as of yet.
As of
yet. Still a very hypothetical yet. But, when you introduce Diamondback, if that's the route the show would have gone, if they kept him around, I actually would have introduced him killing Cottonmouth.
Kind of taking over the
mantle of villain.
Kind of with Elektra and Sigourney Weaver's character.
Yeah, but also, you wouldn't see Diamondback before then. You wouldn't see anybody playing Diamondback. You'd only hear about Diamondback, but you never would have seen him. Much how Shades brings him up every now and then.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, because where Shades doesn't directly work for Cottonmouth, he's the representative of Diamondback. Where a lot of that, much like in the show, a lot of the stuff that you hear about Diamondback comes from Shades. It'd be the same way, and then maybe if at the end of the first season he, ends up going up against Luke Cage in that power suit, gets his ass handed to him, he has to go back and answer to Diamondback. And at the end of the season, he pulls a Thanos or a Darkseid. Do you think okay, he's gonna let it slide, but no, he doesn't. He ends up killing Cottonmouth right then and there, and that's the first time we see Diamondback. That would make
for a great
great intro to a villain.
To a second season, that's a secured second season.
Yeah, I mean, you have the death of the villain in the first season, and now a new villain is taking over, and where you have Diamondback looming in the second season, which could still happen. I don't know what they're doing for season 2. But I think there was a trailer released for season 2.
Yeah, there was. It's Luke Cage speaking to the camera and stuff. So it's I'm Luke Cage. I
haven't seen the trailer. So
I haven't seen the whole thing. I just know that there's one and he's speaking to the camera and stuff.
And I'm kind of curious. You saw Defenders all the way through, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the common belief, for spoilers for the Defenders, here, I'm going to spoil something here, is, to everybody, with the exception of the last scene, is people believe that Daredevil Matt Murdock is dead. They believe he's dead.
I know what the truth is.
We all know with the exception of the characters, know what the truth is. We could tell that it's set up to affect other characters. Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist. I'm kind of curious to see how Iron Fist and Luke Cage, it affects them.
I honestly think they're probably going to team up a little bit in the season 2.
It wouldn't surprise me if it does, and even I actually could see him showing up in Daredevil season 3, and there's a very specific reason why. It's Daredevil season 3 is supposed to be based off of loosely based off of a comic called Born Again, Daredevil Born Again. And in this comic, the Kingpin learns the identity of Daredevil. He finds out that he's Matt Murdock, and pretty much goes on this crusade to ruin Matt Murdock, both physically and his life and emotionally.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me if they take a page from Civil War, where his identity got leaked to the public too, in the Civil War event, where he actually gives his suit to Danny Rand, the Iron Fist, to get people to not believe that he's Daredevil. If he does something very similar, if he reaches out to Danny. It seemed like Danny looked up to Daredevil and the Defenders almost.
Well, yeah, because Danny just got back to
civilization, and even just it's kind of learning about this whole hero thing.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I can see people being divided about that as just, Danny Rand donning the Daredevil suit.
Just what they did with Iron Fist in general is what they...
A lot of people were divided about.
Yeah.
A lot of people... Look, I'm going to be honest here. I didn't hate Iron Fist Season 1. I did not hate it. It's not the best of the Marvel shows. It really isn't. But I still think they have a chance to turn things around. They got a new showrunner for Season 2. So the guy that was running the show for the first season, he's out. He was actually the guy that was sent to go and run the Marvel's Inhumans.
That explains why Inhumans wasn't very good.
Mm-hmm. So now we all know how that turned out.
Oh man, I actually had hope for that show.
We all did,
and
then it came out, and then we saw what happened.
And then it was just like shit.
Yeah, Inhumans was just not the best at all.
No,
but Iron Fist has a chance for recovery, I think. But it has to happen in season 2.
Definitely.
That's their time. They have to go and turn it around. And I think that if they don't, they are gonna have to incorporate him in another show.
Yeah.
Probably Luke Cage.
Because Heroes for Hire.
Yeah, Heroes for Hire, and I could definitely see that potentially happening, mainly because of the fact that they kind of grew close over the course of the Defenders.
Definitely, because then they end up fighting off the Hand.
They all did together. They all did at the very end of the show, but at the same time, there are these sequences where it just focuses on 2 specific characters. There was one episode where it was focusing on Jessica Jones and Matt, and one where it was Danny and Stick and Luke Cage.
Yeah.
And there was one where, there's that whole... They go to that Chinese restaurant after their first attack on the Hand.
Yeah.
Where they all just kind of collide and meet for the first time. Where there's a few sequences where it's just Danny and Luke interacting. And it's actually pretty cool to see, and it's actually very funny to see.
Yeah, because they really clicked in the comic. As friends, they really clicked.
They really clicked. And because of that click, we got the Heroes for Hire comic.
Yep. And
it seems to be that they are clicking again in this show and in the Marvel Netflix stuff.
Yeah.
There's definitely I hesitate to use the word intimacy in the way of but not romantic intimacy.
Yeah. I know
friendship,
I know what you mean. I'm just
intimacy. There's definitely a closeness between them that you kind of see happen.
Like a brother kind of thing.
Yeah, kind of brotherly friend kind of way. You even see what ends up happening. Danny's the first one that goes to the, because it's in Rand Enterprises where they all meet. Danny's the first one that actually, attacks the Hand. And he's getting overwhelmed. He does a pretty good job, but he's getting overwhelmed. And then Luke Cage comes in and essentially saves him. And it's them teaming up, taking on the Hands, knocking everybody else left and right. Then Jessica Jones and Daredevil show up. Wow, my throat's hurting now. Do you have any other? Anyways, back to Tarantino. I went off on a little bit of a tangent there.
A little bit.
A little bit of a tangent
A
there.
little bit.
Good 20-minute tangent there, probably.
It happens. I admire his work. He does a really good job, no matter what anyone really says. You know, Django racked up Oscar for him when that first came out.
Yeah, it did. It definitely did.
I think he was nominated for like Pulp Fiction or.
Yeah, he was definitely. I think he was nominated for some stuff. I think he won at least at Sundance.
Yeah.
Some stuff there.
But you know, he's just great.
He is. He is great. I mean, I can definitely see just through his style and the use of violence that his movies are not for everybody.
Yeah.
They're not. You know, if you're not a fan of, I guess, pulpy movies, then you probably shouldn't watch Tarantino films because you're probably not gonna like them.
You're really not gonna like them.
They're good movies, but you know they're not for everybody, and that could really be said about any film, really. Although, much like all the other stuff that he had planned, you know, there's that rumor I think that was confirmed that he wrote a Silver Surfer script too, which we talked about. I kind of want to see what he would have done for a superhero film. I doubt we'll see it, but I really wanted to see how he would do one.
Yeah.
Like there was this fan made trailer I showed you a little while ago for Logan, which it was made in the style of the Django Unchained trailer.
Yeah, it was Logan made in the style of Django Unchained.
And it kind of made me wonder, like, I need to see Quentin Tarantino's The Wolverine.
Yeah.
I need that in my life now.
That would be pretty fucking amazing.
It would be. It's a good character to do that for. It kind of fits his style really well. Yeah. Anything else you want to talk about, or you want to wrap it up?
That's just wrap. Yeah.
Okay. So this has been episode 2 of the podcast of the Untitled podcast.
The Entitlement of Thine podcast.
Entitlement of Thine podcast.
Don't even know if that's the right Old English.
But I don't even know if it is either. I did not grow up in that time.
No, neither did I.
But, you have any ideas you want to pitch for episode 3? I've got none.
I'm kind of running off of.
Well, we did one of the 2 ideas we had last time.
What if?
The what if. Okay, so what we're gonna do for episode 3 is called What If Scenarios, and the idea is we're not gonna limit it to really any specific thing, but it would be kind of a realistic reaction to certain things. Like, let's say hypothetically, what if mutants were real? What if the superheroes were real? What if Godzilla was real? What if, something like that, something along those lines.
Yeah. Like, what if Star Wars actually happened? What if?
Yeah, and it doesn't need to be a fully thought out idea down to the political level of everything, but just a general thing of how we think people would react to certain situations. And we're not going to limit it to any real thing. We can kind of shift it around to different things, different genres, different characters. Like, we could start with an action, sci-fi oriented, moved over to a horror.
Yeah.
And we'll come back hopefully soon with something with that, involving that. And I'm Zach.
I'm Jacob.
And this has been the Untitled Podcast.
All right. Like, subscribe, all that. Comment, please.
Give us feedback.
Please.
Give us feedback.
Please. Pretty please.
Thank you.
And have a good rest.
What was I going to say? Good night and good luck, I guess.
Good night and good news.